Gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of NFL WPTV. We're your hosts, Steve Huber and Andrew Kerpis.
Hello.
Now let's start this thing off with our weekly roundup. So looking back on week 4, I think we all know who won the weekly title. Out of the MPC, we have Dave Finn. He came in with a modest 13.9-4 record, but that was enough to win in a pretty down week for basically all 22 of us. Looking at the top 3 in each conference out of the APC, you had surprise, Fear the Phil, maybe giving us something to fear there, number 1. And then number 2 and 3 were Rick and Mike filling out that. On the MPC side, we had, of course, Dave Finn with the weekly title, followed by Paul, and Mr. In the Red, Keith Larzalier came up in 3rd place. The bottom 3 in each conference in the APC, we had Craig, Vince, and Justin. And out of the MPC in the bottom 3, we had, unfortunately, myself, Chris Fox, and Denny.
Yeah, it was a rough week all around. Dave Finn somehow survived, but it was also a huge week for Jeff, as you said. He climbed up in the standings. I know Rick was really excited about how he did last week. He was texting me all Monday night. And then on the bottom side, I know Vince was pretty distraught on Monday night because he went scoreless. And, of course, that was a week that Denny couldn't afford, and he's falling fast, and he needs to turn it around fast.
Yeah, that's a good point. Both Van Dorps, to be honest, have actually been pretty poor so far this year. Rounding out the weekly roundup here, as we know, Monday night was the end of September. As we know, we're in October here. And out of the MPC, we took the monthly title down there. Dave Finn with a solid 60 points in those 4 weeks, with a 43-18 record, and coming in with a close second was Eli, 3 points shy, 57. So great performance, good effort out of the APC, but Dave Finn takes home the first cash money, which included 2 weekly titles. So I think we all saw that one coming.
Yeah, and it feels weird to say that it was his first monthly title victory in 10 years. And he did fall 4 points short of the all-time record that belongs to Keith, which was set just last year, but still an impressive month for him. And he's almost paid his entire due for the year with his $25 for the weekly title and the 25 for the monthly title. Looking ahead, Steve Terrell has the all-time record for October points with 70. That was set in 2011.
All right, we'll see if we've got some new milestones to talk about coming up. So, as we said, Dave Finn wins that weekly title, and we're all talking about the race to 9, and that helps even it up at 2 apiece, MPC and APC even through 4 weeks. Now we'll use that to segue into one of my favorite topics, the heroes and the zeros. So starting with the hero, I think we're going to have to say his name at least one more time tonight's broadcast, Mr. Dave Finn. 2nd weekly title, the monthly title, evening up the race to 9. You can call this guy Mr. MPC at this point. He's carrying the entire conference on his back. And our zero, tough one to call. I'm going to give it a tie. We have Craig and Vince, who came through with a measly, minuscule, awful, embarrassing, terrible 5-point week, which included best bet points. So luckily that rule was added a few years ago. Otherwise, these guys would be looking at 4 points for the week. Just plain awful. Anything to add to that?
Those are good choices. I agree with you. I did go a different route on my hero and my zero. For my hero, I chose Keith Larzalier. He did guarantee a weekly title. He did fall short, but he was one of only 6 members to reach double digits last week and the only member to earn 3 bonus points. On the zero side of things, I chose the New England Patriots because they caused 8 members to go scoreless on Monday night. But if I had to pick an NFL WP tier, I chose Josh Morenza, who went scoreless. He took Dwayne Bowe at the flex spot, and he hasn't scored a single touchdown this year. He's got 1 touchdown in his last 8 regular season weeks.
Yeah, good point. Very, very questionable bonus selection. And, hey, as a former Colt fan and current Bronco fan, I'm always a fan of calling the Patriots zeros. All right, moving into our risers and fallers. So we saw a little bit of a shakeup in the standings, but nothing too extreme this week. But out of the APC, we did see some big movement. Again, the Fear the Phil movement coming through from dead last. He found himself climbing up to 6th, and now in the yellow. Interesting to watch. Can Phil hold and stay in playoff contention? He's got a few more weeks to do this. Out of the MPC, our riser and faller, we saw Paul Aliff and myself essentially switch places. Paul moving from 5th up to 2nd. Myself going from 2nd down to 5th. And then we saw Chuck, who's just in a rough month here, moving from 8th even further down to 11th. He finds himself in last place in the APC.
Yeah, not a good week for Chuck.
Yeah. And now going into our Ballsy and Bonehead picks of the week. With the Ballsy, this was actually pretty simple, one of the easiest ones we've had. Mr. Phil, Jeff, whoever you want to call him, coming up big with the Minnesota pick over Atlanta. Only member to do so, giving him a hero pick in the way there, and that's what helped shoot him up into the yellow. On the Bonehead side, I had to give, unfortunately, a 6-way tie. We have Josh, Keith, Eli, Craig, Rick, and Phil himself, again, doing a Ballsy and a Bonehead in the same week. Going with Oakland over Miami. Oakland, the Raiders. You might as well just pick Jacksonville. Why would you pick Oakland? Stop picking Oakland, people. Bonehead picks of the week.
Good selections.
Now moving into one of my new favorite topics here, and Andrew's going to help do the honors here, our social media smack talk. Give us the update.
So I looked all over Twitter this week, and I was looking for the tweet of the week, and they were relatively quiet all week. There was nothing going on, all picks, all business. So I looked over to the Facebook side of things. Friday morning, Justin Benset blessed us with a nice comment about his hungover picks and how he thought it was Sunday. It was only Friday morning. Good thing he posted, though. He's at Adrian College this weekend, and we know what happens at Adrian College. Chuck Hutton issued a bad boy call-out to Steve Huber this week. I'll let you get into that in a few moments. And then finally, Keith Larzalier called Easy Smith Queasy Smith, which I didn't find funny at all.
Yeah, Easy, from all of my interactions and our personal sit-downs and preseason, during the season, he really just seems like a nice family guy. I'm not quite sure why he gets so much hate on the old Facebook machine. But anyway, like you said, Mr. Chuck Hutton. So it's been a while since I've had to address other members in the league. If you recall my press conference last April, May, when we were talking about Phil, Chuck Hutton decided to come out this week with a bad boy call-out. Now, like I said, I've been away for a few years. I'm not sure if that's been a regular, but I know Mr. Steve Terrell used to issue quite a few of these bad boy call-outs back in our heyday. And I was kind of excited about it. I kind of heard the bad boy call-out, and I was happy to be a part of it. And how does Chuck follow it up? He doesn't pick for the Thursday night game. So calling me out, saying he's going to beat me and just trash me this week, and I already have my 1 point. Green Bay over Minnesota seemed pretty simple. Just go on Facebook, type the words Green and Bay, got a free point. And Chuck decided to wait until it was 21-0 in the second quarter to try to sneak in a little Green Bay pick, and naturally wasn't awarded any points and actually was pretty upset about it. So just curious what's going on with that one, Chuck. Hopefully we can get some follow-up, but you're really not bad. You just kind of seem like a boy. Anyway, moving on after our social media smack talk, let's move into our contenders and pretenders. So last week, I believe I had a few contender and pretender picks, and I said not only were Eli and Matt Babecki the rookie contenders, as they were showing some pretty good stuff so far, but I made a bold prediction and said that Mr. Fear the Phil, Jeff Simmons, although sitting in the red all season, was a contender. And what do you know? Came in second place last week, was in the running for the weekly title, just missed out, and Mr. Phil finds himself in the yellow. Not too bad. Andrew?
Well, last week I picked Dave Finn as my pretender, Paul Aliff as my contender. I'm happy to say that I was half right. Paul Aliff finished second in the NPC. Dave won the weekly title and the monthly title. I still stand by what I said. Dave is the pretender. Paul's the contender. Lock it up.
All right. Like I said earlier, a lot of weeks to go. We got a lot of time to play here. All right, so moving on, I think I'm going to stick with my predictions. I think I'm going to stay with Mr. Simmons here. I think he is a contender. And I think I'm going to change course on Matt Becky. I think we see a downfall in October. I don't think he can sustain that. And I think by the end of October, we see Becky, best case, 7th place.
Pretty bold prediction.
All right. Speaking of bold, let's talk about some milestones. What were the big milestones we saw in the NFL WPT in Week 4?
Well, last week, you hit 1,100 career points. Craig Harrison hit 1,000 and 700 wins in the same week. And Dave Finn, there's that name again, 1,400 victories. Looking ahead, we'll try it again with Jason Watson. He's 7 points away from 1,000. He's 6 wins away from 700 wins. Paul Ailiff already hit 2,100 points on Thursday night. Justin Bensett's 11 away from 1,500. Brandon Larzalier and Steve Terrell are deadlocked at 1,888, looking to get 1,900. And Chris Fox needs 6 points to reach 1,200 points.
Excellent. This should be definitely an interesting week to watch. A lot of milestones coming up. All right. Now, this also, and I know I say it plus every segment, this is definitely one of my favorite segments. The Did You Know? Take it away.
Well, last year, Week 5, Dan Van Dorp was the Week 5 title winner. Dave Finn holds the all-time record for most points in a Week 5 with 19. He set that record 10 years ago, in 2004. But do you know who has the most Week 5 titles in league history? None other than Tom Susala. He shared the 2006 Week 5 title with Paul Ailiff and then won it outright 2 years later.
That is a name I haven't heard in quite a few years. Excellent.
That's for sure.
All right. So now let's take a quick look at our way too early predictions. Here's our playoff picture as it sits right now. As I like to go, a little stoplight here, a little green, yellow, red. So in the APC, we'll start in the green. Eli still hanging on to that 1 seed with an impressive 57 points. Dropping down to the yellow, as it sits, our 2 versus 7 game. Matt Becky, the rookie, versus Craig Harrison. Our 3 versus 6, we have Mike versus Jeff Simmons. Wouldn't we all love to see that first round matchup? And 4 versus 5, the defending champ, JY, Justin Bensett, still in there, versus Rick. In the red, just sitting out of the playoff picture, in this order, Vince, Andrew, Matt, Jay, and Chuck, dead last.
Yeah, we'd have some first-time matchups with Craig and Matt Becky. Obviously, Matt's a rookie. Rick and then Justin, another first-time matchup. Those would be a couple of interesting little matchups there. But I'm surprised that you're the first person to even mention Jeff versus Mike. We'd all love to see that, and no one said anything. It's been sitting there all week, right in everyone's faces.
Yeah, and you know what? I kind of like that. It's a good look. That means everybody's thinking long-term down the road. We all know it's a long season. Moving over to the NPC side, Mr. NPC, Dave Finn, sitting comfortably in the 1 spot in the green. He's got a nice 5-point lead on second place Paul Ailiff. Speaking of Paul in the yellow, that 2 versus 7 matchup will be Paul versus Keith Larzalier. Finds himself in the playoff picture for the first time. Then we have a tie for third place right now. Josh Morenza and Steve Terrell both deadlocked, points and record, which would be interesting to see. So as it sits right now, we'll just go alphabetical. We'll call Josh the 3 seed versus Jason at the 6. And then our 4-5 will be a battle of former roommates, the Steve from upstairs and the Steve from downstairs, myself. Sitting in the red, just out of the playoff picture, we have Denny Van Dorp, Chris Fox, Brandon Larzalier, and the other Van Dorp, our captain, Dan, finding himself in dead last.
Yeah, Steve, alphabetical is how I did it too. Of course, with Keith and Paul, they'd be a first-time matchup as well. But Jason Watson and Josh Morenza, that would be a rematch of the 2011 NPC Championship game, which was won by Josh Morenza by a score of 9-4. And of course, you versus Steve Terrell will be a rematch of NFL WPT Bowl 3, which you won. But something tells me you guys would prefer to face each other in a conference final versus the first round.
That's true. I think it would only be right, but hey, I'm biased. All right, moving into our closing segment here, our predictions for Week 5. Looking into the week title, who's going to take home the crown and which conference is going to swing that race to 9 lead? Tough to say. You may have seen just earlier on Saturday, Easy Smith came out with a prediction of myself, which I'm flattered. And then Paul Ailiff quickly responded with, I'm going to copy your pick, Steve. So I think we can call that as good of a jinx as anything, and I don't think it's going to be myself or Paul. I'm going Josh Morenza. Out of the MPC, swing the race to 9, 3-2 for the MPC for the blue guys. And I'm going to say Josh jumps Paul and takes that second place slot. I think Dave Finn will be good enough to keep first, and hopefully I do well enough to climb up into that top 3. As far as the APC side goes, predictions, I say Chuck continues his streak of misery. I say I beat him not only by 5 points this week, I'm predicting I'm going to take Chuck by at least 5 points every week this month of October. And by Halloween night, I'm going to have twice as many points as Chuck Hutton does.
That's another bold prediction. I have one of my own here in a second, but first, I've got Denny Van Dorp winning the Week 5 title. It's early still. I'm not ready to write him off yet. Now, for my bold prediction, I had Chuck Hutton. I know he's in the East Lansing. I thought he wouldn't make his picks this week, but he did, so I have to call an audible. Dave Finn currently has 60 points. The all-time record, which is his record, for most points after 5 weeks of play is 85 points. That means Finn would need 25 points, tying the all-time record for most points in 1 week. To tie his own record, I predict he doesn't come anywhere close this week.
Nice. Nice curveball there.
I do have one final note to say here before I go. In 3 weeks here, on October 26th, the Detroit Lions play the Atlanta Falcons in London, and that game is around 9 a.m. So there's going to be a pick due date at 9 a.m. on that Sunday. This is your 3-week notice. Don't miss that deadline. Don't lose points.
Yeah, and we can pretty much just say, Chuck, make your pick, is what he's trying to say. I'm sure the other 21 of us will be fine.
Exactly.
But alrighty, well, that's all we have it here in our NFLWP TV studios. I'm Steve Huber alongside Andrew Kerpis. Go green, and as always, enjoy your orange. Have a good night.